The Howling. Nothing prepares you for Cairo. You can read books, watch documentaries, listen to other people's accounts of arriving at this gateway city between East and West, but nothing prepares you for the mayhem and sense of chaos. 5 days ago, I arrived in this sprawling, shambled metropolis and continue to feel very disorientated. My mind seems to have taken on the personality of the rambling serpentine coils of this city. I feel out of control as situations present themselves, and I stumble like a drunken man trying to fathom the meanings of the mundane. They just have a different way of doing things here, which is definitely contrary to a Western mind. We're so used to clearly defined arrangements, but here, everything is flexible and adaptable to change. Every question about the day's plans is replied to by, "No problem," meaning we will take care of it. After several days, you realize amazingly that they do. Peace, there is no peace. Every minute of every day, your senses are bombarded by an exotic cacophony of alien language, smells, and visions that are superimposed upon wailing electronic rhythms of contemporary Middle Eastern melodies. Then, quite suddenly, from out of this seeming pandemonium, you hear one of the 5 haunting calls to prayer that spirals up to marry the confusion into a rich and mysterious mandala. This collage of overwhelming sensory impressions is carried upon the heaving serpent of pollution that writhes through the zigzagging alleys and streets with scales of spangled dust. Methodically and incessantly, this serpent wends its way while shedding its scales of contamination, leaving nothing immune from its caress. It was from within this glorious mayhem that at 8 a.m. one morning I took a taxi to the step pyramid of Saqqara, arriving at its remote location about an hour later. This site lies just outside of the fertile area of the Nile Valley, southwest of Cairo. Not bothering to wait for me to get out, my driver sank himself down in the driver's seat, put a newspaper over his head to shield his eyes from the sun, and told me he'd wait for my return. I emerged onto the lunar-like landscape and was immediately gripped by the peace and sense of solitude. After the chaos of Cairo, it was reminiscent of having a cooling balm massaged onto a fiery insect bite. The peace washed over and refreshed me in a rhythm of euphoric waves. I don't think I've ever experienced a quietness quite like it. I was sure that I could literally hear a pin drop from yards away. The desert wasn't as I had imagined it. I expected sand, but found it was actually composed of boulders, shale, and pieces of rock fragments. I bent down and let my hand stroke across the surface and picked up a thin veneer of white dust across my palm and fingers. I walked towards the reconstructed entrance at the southeast corner of the complex and observed, even at this early hour, tourists approaching up the road from the valley. Amazingly, not even our presence disturbed the peace and rejuvenating qualities of the site. It was as though we were separate, insulated from the site by some invisible sphere. It was as though the timeless guardians of this necropolis shielded themselves from the contamination of modern man by creating force fields around the intruders. Like holographic images, we moved through the tumbled stones and left as much of an impact as light passing across the surface of a lake.